Hi there, welcome to Get Well, Stay Well on Revelation TV. My name is Cyrus and we're delighted to have back Felicity, who's just arrived back from California. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely fine. I've had a wonderful time, Cy, and met all these really interesting doctors who we've featured on the programs and will continue to feature, and lots of new information. I was absolutely thrilled that I went.
What was the purpose of your trip, Felicity?
Well, I went to really see everybody again, and you know, I trained out in America. I've been doing that for the last 20 years. And it was great to catch up with everybody and also hear the very latest about integrated health, which is wonderful because this is where we put orthodox health together with natural health. And it's amazing how interested people are in the spirituality, because about 95% of all disease, especially cancer, is caused through stress, through anxiety, through depression. And I have actually just done a little booklet on that, which is on my website, because I know, I mean, I was really stressed as well after my daughter died. I've had a husband die as well. And, you know, you go through bad times. And so I do know what it's like to struggle. But I've written the little booklet, and I can tell you that all through my trip, I was thinking about that booklet. And, you know, when my luggage was lost at Heathrow for 4 hours, I managed to keep perfectly calm. And I had a lovely Nigerian guy who was with me, who was driving the handicap buggy thing. And he stayed with me all 4 hours, and we had a great chat. And then, because I'd missed the flight due to headwinds, I was on a different flight to Malaga. And there I was sitting next to a really interesting guy who's a lawyer and a trainer and is so interested in Get Well, Stay Well.
Fantastic.
And I think all America now knows about Revelation TV.
Excellent. Well, we do broadcast all around the world. It's like you said, cancer and disease can be brought on by stress, anxiety, pressure. And it's really about how we can prevent it. That's the most important part, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, prevention is the key. Having lost a beautiful young daughter, no one knows more than I do how prevention is really vital. And of course, it's pollution in the world as well, from what we're breathing, as well as what we're eating and drinking and thinking, because it all mounts up into this sort of perfect storm that people are living in. And it was quite shocking that they started off by saying, you know, 1 in 2 men now has cancer, and 1 in 3 women. I mean, this is shocking statistics. And if nothing is done about it in the next 20 to 30 years, 75% of people will die of cancer. You know, shocking.
But what is the content that we say in our programs? It's taking things back to basics. It's not rocket science. It's just looking after yourself with the right lifestyle and the foods that you eat.
Absolutely. And it's going back to God's original diet as well. You know, we've just been talking about the blood in the animal and not eating the blood. And of course we shouldn't. And God, in the original diet, the creation diet, it's all plant-based. And so these wonderful top institutes where people are getting well are actually advising, certainly, you come back to the Genesis diet. Hallelujah.
Let's talk about today's topic of integrated health cure to cancer. Why have you chosen this topic?
Well, I think this was the name of the conference that I went to, and the joy is that orthodox medicine is starting to become integrated with alternative and complementary, whatever you like to call it. But in fact, it's the original medicine that people were on for years before everything got drug-based. And Dr. Contreras, who I was actually introducing at the conference, you know, he says how important it is to prepare the body and to defend your immune system. This is absolutely vital. So really, it's up to people. It's choice. It's all about choice. And when people really come back to basics, to living a godly life and eating godly food, and people then will not get these diseases that are such an epidemic now.
Now, you mentioned Dr. Francisco Contreras from the Oasis of Hope. What is the Oasis of Hope?
Well, the Oasis of Hope is a Christian cancer hospital. And the reason it's based in Mexico is Francisco's father, who was a Nesto, started this. He was a Mexican army doctor and was getting people well with the apricot kernels, which are banned by Big Pharma around the world. But of course, down in Mexico, the FDA can't ban it. So that's why we go across to Mexico. And in fact, it's only the essence of the apricot seed, which you can get off any tree.
Okay, well, let's take a look at our first clip. This is by Francisco Contreras from the Oasis of Hope, and he's talking about how we can treat cancer.
We are not fighting tumors. We are helping patients. Rather than destroying tumors, we are providing resources to our patients for them to heal themselves. And we provide resources not only at the physical level, with at the emotional level and at the spiritual level, based on two principles. The first principle was stated by Hippocrates, the father of medicine, who said, first do no harm. So our first principle is that every therapy that we're going to use it as long as we are convinced that it's going to help improve the quality of life of our patients. And the second principle was stated by Jesus, and he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. We say, love your patient as you love yourself. That means that every therapy that we're going to design is a therapy that we ourselves would be willing to use in case we would be troubled with cancer. And that is very rare. Most oncologists never take chemotherapy.
Yeah, there's a
Radiation
study.
therapy, yes. But
Isn't there a study in the U.S. that most oncologists, when asked anonymously, say
Exactly.
they were not?
percent said that they wouldn't take it, and the guy that did the polling concludes at the end that the other 14% were lying. So that's the philosophy, and that's really what separates us from anybody that's treating cancer with whatever modality.
And you are shrinking tumors. I saw some incredible slides that you showed in your presentation today to the patients and myself. They do shrink some.
Oh yes, yes,
Sure.
Definitely. But that's not what's important to us, because there are many therapies that shrink the tumors, but then the patient dies.
Yeah.
For us, what's important is the patient is alive. So in many cases, of course, we need to reduce tumor mass. That's very important for us, and obviously for the survivability of our patients. But still, that is not our main aim. Our main goal is that the patient survives for a long time with quality of life.
Right. And you're doing 3 side effects of chemo and radiation, yes, and to increase the efficacy of chemo and radiation, and those 3 things also have the power to oxygenate, kill tumors.
Correct.
And tell us what those are, because one of them's approved in Russia but not here.
One of them is Perftec, that's approved in Russia and Mexico, but not in the States. The other one is Ozone, which is approved in Mexico, not completely banned in the state legally, but most doctors don't use it because there's a lot of pressure for them in doing that. And the other one is using very, very high dosage of vitamin C as chemotherapy, based on research by the NIH and the NCI, which proves that if you use 60 to 100 grams of vitamin C in a very short time, in the presence of oxygen within the tumor, it will act as chemotherapy without any of the side effects.
Very good. Well, I'm going to go undergo ozone therapy. What happens. Thank you very much for having me at your clinic and for talking to my readers, many of whom have loved ones who are battling cancer.
Yes.
And
and there is a tremendous amount of hope. I think, the message is that cancer
that one of the things that surprised me most in this cancer journey, that I'm only about 6 months cancer or die of cancer, and what I'm finding is that a lot of integrative practitioners understand they're beating melanoma cancer with an all-raw diet. Well, what I don't often tell the story, just because it's a long story.
Interesting what Dr. Contreras said at the end, that cancer does not need to be a death sentence.
I mean, I had it, as you know, I had pancreatic cancer back in 2003. I followed the protocol that Dr. Contreras gives. I didn't actually go to Mexico at the time. I had the intravenous in Jersey. And people can do that. You can also take the apricot kernels, of course, and as a stronger form, because the kernels are fine for prevention, but if you're actually fighting cancer, or a serious one like I was, then you need to get it straight into the blood intravenously. And you can take tablets as well. And you see, the joy about this place is that you can ring them. You don't actually have to go there. They will send you all the DVDs and explain exactly how you should do the therapy. And it's not just the apricot kernels. I mean, they have the oxygenation, they have the hypothermia, all kinds of different treatments, and the supplements, because they do believe in building up the immune system again. And you know, with our foods, we've got so deficient of magnesium and zinc and selenium and all these really important minerals.
We do need to be more aware of the food that we're eating and be aware of the importance of us eating the right foods, but also try and make it the raw vegan diet as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I was amazed at the hotel that they had lots of fresh fruit and vegetables that I was able to use, and I bought some green wheatgrass powder. I made that into my wheatgrass because obviously I wasn't growing it in the hotel.
Yeah.
And I felt amazing, and I have no jet lag at all, you know, having just got back 11 hours on the flight from San Diego to London. And then because I'd missed the flight, I had to wait, and then another 3 hours into Spain, or 2.5 hours. But I feel fine.
Now, what's interesting about the Oasis of Hope is they really do help the patients in many different aspects. It's not just curing the cancer, but psychologically and emotionally as well, don't they?
Well, you're welcomed with such love. And when I went back 5 years later, because I thought I had a problem again, which in fact I didn't, when I went back and I wanted to see them, I wanted to thank them, and I was welcomed. I went entirely on my own, and I was greeted by a lovely Mexican male nurse. There are nearly all male nurses there. When I was there, it was all men. And he was just such a nice young guy, and said, look, I'm here to help you, and showed me to my room, said, you know, this is my mobile number, you can ring me anytime you want, speaks fluent English. And most of those guys go on to become doctors. So it was just amazing, and the oncology team was terrific. You see, he's a proper oncologist. He's trained in Mexico and also in Austria. So he's very highly trained. He's into all the very latest chemo if people need it. Hopefully they try to avoid it if they can. And if they do it, they do very small doses, which are insulin potentiated. That means, because we know sugar feeds cancer cells, what they do is, you know, with the PET scans, that's how they trace where the cancer is, because when you inject someone with the sugar, it goes straight to the cancer cells to feed them. So what they do is pop a little bit of chemo in with that sugar, and with 1/10 of the chemo usually used, they can do much, much better results.
Okay, well, let's take a look at our next clip now. This is with Dr. Contreras explaining the procedures that they use to treat cancer.
Doing 3 really interesting things, either to prep a patient to be really resilient to the side effects of chemo and radiation, and to increase the efficacy of chemo and radiation. And those 3 things also have the power to oxygenate, kill tumors.
Correct.
And tell us what those are, because one of them's approved in Russia, but not here.
One of them is Perftic, that's approved in Russia and Mexico, but not in the States. The other one is Ozone, which is approved in Mexico, not completely banned in the state legally, but most doctors don't use it because there's a lot of pressure for them in doing that. And the other one is using very, very high dosage of vitamin C as chemotherapy, based on research by the NIH and the NCI, which proves that if you use 60 to 100 grams of vitamin C in a very short time, in the presence of oxygen within the tumor, it will act as chemotherapy without any of the side effects.
Very good. Well, I'm going to go undergo ozone therapy here at Oasis of Hope myself, so this gets really visual for you. and see what happens. Thank you very much for having me at your clinic and for talking to my readers, many of whom have loved ones who are battling cancer.
Yes.
And we hope that there's some folks who are willing to cross the border and reach out for some hope here. So.
And there is a tremendous amount of hope. I think, the message is that cancer does not have to be a death sentence. You can change that.
I was telling Dr. Contreras that one of the things that surprised me most in this 6 months into the various places I've visited is that I thought that you would either cure cancer or die of cancer. And what I'm finding is that a lot of integrative practitioners are beating melanoma cancer with an all-raw diet. Well, what I don't often tell the story just because it's before it was diagnosed. And the MD actually said to him, "You feel." I think a lot of us probably have tumors and don't know it, and so it's only a so
exactly.
I'm really grateful for the shift in my thinking, and I think a lot of cancer patients some spiritual healing that needs to take place, and some really amazing things can happen. So I'm off to as a survivor of cancer, very deadly cancer, 37 years ago, here at Oasis of Hope, and he's healthy and 67 years old now. So we're going to go see him, and I'm going to go get that therapy. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
See you next time.
Hi there, welcome back. Felicity, explain to me why just reiterate to our viewers, why is this procedure in Mexico and not so well known in Europe?
Well, in fact, it is known in Europe because it's done in Russia, in Hungary. It's just in areas that are controlled by the Federal Drug Association and Big Pharma. And they don't like it because, in fact, people can get well naturally without being nearly killed with the toxicity of the drugs that are normally used in the West, because it makes a lot of money for Big Pharma. That's why I wear a flak jacket most of the time, folks. So it can be done. It could be done here. I mean, the apricot seeds are growing on the trees everywhere. I actually went down and spoke in New Zealand back, I think that was 2007, because a friend of mine had pancreatic cancer down there, and they were actually dumping the apricot seeds in the sea so that the cancer patients couldn't get hold of them. And I was so incensed. I flew down with some things to help her, and I spoke to a huge crowd in Auckland. They had the Maoris, of course, were incensed that natural medicine was being prevented. So we had a huge rally, and I stood up and spoke at that and said, I am here because of natural medicine. You know, I would have been dead in 2003. And although I was still feeling pretty tired and weak, because it took me 2 years to regain my strength after the cancer, I was so ill. And spread the good news.
Now, some of our viewers might not be able to afford to go to Mexico, California, or other countries in Europe to carry this procedure. What can they do at home?
Well, exactly, and this is what fires me, because having lost a daughter who I know would have been cured if we'd had access to all this information, I'm absolutely passionate about bringing it to everyone at a reasonable, the cheapest cost that you can do. I mean, you can do this stuff at home, really, Si, because it's changing your diet, it's doing the exercise, it's oxygenating the body, alkalizing the body, and really being sensible, preventing, you know, stepping on landmines, which are the pollution in our lives. We want to move to areas where the air is toxic chemicals in the air. And this wonderful Christian doctor has actually set up clips and stuff with digital instructions that you can do it at home, as I indeed did.
And can that be found on his website?
Absolutely, yes.
So
yes.
what would the viewers need to type in?
Oasis of Hope. It's called Oasis of Hope.
Right.
And it's the hospital, the Christian Cancer Hospital. And, you know, I love it because he says he is the founder, and or his father was the founder, and he's the director. But he said, you know, our medical director is Jesus Christ. And they pray with patients. There's a beautiful chapel there that I spent lots of time in with patients. And what a difference to the usual, you know, the usual hospital. You're treated with love, you're treated as a person instead of just a patient.
Okay, well, let's take a look at our next clip now. This is by Rick Hill, who was a patient at the Oasis of Hope, and let's see what he had to say.
Hello, I am Robin, and I am known as the Green Smoothie Girl on the web. I'm here with Rick Hill. I was hearing everybody talk about you, and I thought they were calling you Raquel. And he really does look like a Raquel. So I asked him to spell his name. It's Rick Hill. And he
I'm
goes,
not pretty like Raquel.
I said, how do you spell your name? And he goes, Hill. Rick's kind of a rock star around here at Oasis of Hope, just across the border in Mexico, because what happened to you 37 years ago?
37 years ago, I found out I had stage 3 embryonal cell carcinoma. I'll look at the camera because that's hard to understand. Embryo like in baby. Embryonal cell carcinoma, stage 3.
It's pretty rare cancer.
I don't know if it's so much rare. It was just back in the 70s, nobody survived it.
No one survived.
I wouldn't say no one, but I would say
almost no one.
Almost no. I asked the Mayo Clinic chemotherapist, how many people have taken your chemotherapy with my kind of cancer and lived to tell about it? And he just hem-hawed. I said, is it a nice round number? And he didn't think that was funny. And so I came to the conclusion that it was curtains. And when I said to him, I think I'm going to go to Mexico, he said, well, it is warm there. In other words, we're not going to help you. So there's little point in worrying about that. So
why not?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is 1971, and so you came here to
74.
1974. And so you came here and you worked with Dr. Ernesto Contreras.
Right, that's Francisco's father.
Right, the original integrative oncologist kind of invented that term.
He was the brain behind the whole movement.
And in those days, everybody was like lining up out the door to get what kind of treatment. Same thing, my grandmother, I talk about my grandmother, she beat a metastatic stage 3 melanoma cancer in the early 1980s, so after you did, but doing some of the same things you did. What did you do?
Well, it wasn't nearly as sophisticated back then. I mean, that's an understatement. Mm-hmm. But they were doing the best they could. And there were basic 2 parts to the program back then. 3. One was what they called Laetrile. That's gotten all the publicity and the bad press.
Comes from the apricot pit. It got bad press because it's not FDA approved.
Right. And it's got a high cyanide factor. Mm-hmm. And people are afraid of cyanide, but as the doctor pointed out this morning, without some cyanide in your diet, you're going to die anyway.
Yeah, and as he pointed out, there's 130 foods that have cyanide in them, including strawberries.
Right. Yeah.
We need cyanide
Apple
to make
seeds.
cyanocobalamin, which is
Look at you with the big words.
Yeah.
So
like that?
They gave me Laetrile, which was the main part of their program back then. Now it's not, although they do use it. Right. It's a good painkiller. Most people don't know that. I knew it because when I got home, when I got off of Laetrile, I was in massive pain, and I thought I relapsed.
But it's just you're off the.
That was just off the painkiller, yeah.
And the critical thing with, as far as they know, with Laetrile is that it's B17, right?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, it was. I didn't get sick when I took it. My hair didn't fall out. I had a lot more hair then, by the way, and it was fine. So that was part. Then they did an enzyme called Wobimugos. It sounds horrible. It sounds like the middle of a cold, but it was just an enzyme we took. And then the third part was, of course, diet. You couldn't eat bad food anymore, and so those were the 3.
What did you eat?
Well, I went on pretty much a raw, uncooked diet for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. Fruits and vegetables.
Hi there, welcome back. Just got a question for you, Felicity. We talked about apricot kernels earlier. Is it safe for our viewers to eat apricot kernels even if they're not suffering from cancer?
Well, the great thing is to take them so you don't ever suffer from cancer. Yeah, absolutely.
It works as a prevention.
And the apple seeds, you see, the apple seeds are full of the hydrocyanic acid as well. And lentils are good. There's a whole lot of foods, mainly the foods that I'm giving people when they come on the course. Those are the foods that are lateral rich, and the phytonutrients. It's all God's food. But when we're eating and drinking, of course, sugary drinks, and eating chemical food, which I call PHUD, because it's not real FOOD, you know, we are really causing cancer in the body, and this is why people fight the battle that we should not have anything genetically modified, and we should really try and get organic food, because food is being sprayed with pesticides. And of course, we had the problem with my family with the water. The water was contaminated with fertilizers and pesticides, which had been put on the crops.
How can we protect ourselves from water?
Well, you can do the distilled water, and you can also do purified water. And Philip Day and I have had a good chat about this, because I think it's absolutely vital to tell people the right thing. And when people are really toxic, they can go on distilled water for a bit, then you can come back to just ordinary filtered water. But I had distilled water for, it's 11 years since I got well, and I've been on distilled water most of the time, and I just feel amazingly fit and good, so I've had no side effects from it.
Now, you mentioned earlier about eating lentils was a good way of prevention of cancer as well. What other good foods are there?
Well, the curries are marvellous, because you've got curcumin and you've got turmeric, and they are really as good as chemotherapy and much more fun to take. So, yeah, I think curries, you know, I curry broccoli, so I'm getting the wonderful phytonutrients in the broccoli, which I now adore, and I do it with herbs, and I do it with all kinds of nice tasting things. You know, it's like the juices. You can make them really delicious.
I think we're so blessed in today's society, in today's technology, that there is a technology out there for us to do our own education. We can go on the internet and we can read what we should and shouldn't be doing. I mean, compared to maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, we're blessed.
That's why my daughter died, because, I mean, that's 25 years ago now, and there was no information out there, and so you just had to do what the doctor told you, and, you know, it killed her. It depends how strong people's immune systems are, because we all know people who've been through chemo and, you know, obviously been ill while they're having it, but then they've recovered, and some have not relapsed, because the problem is, that's why I call my course Get Well, Stay Well. The vital thing is you stay well, because anyone can shrink a tumor with chemotherapy. They shrink it down, and radiation, you can see it shrink down. But the thing is to stop it coming back, which is what happens in most cases, which is tragic.
No, you have to, like you said, you have to be radical, and maybe some of our viewers might say at the beginning of the diet, I'll be radical and I'll eat the right foods. But what advice could you give to our viewers about maintaining and eating the right foods?
Well, you know, it's funny, once people start feeling so much better when they get on the diet, they don't really want to come off it again. It's different to when you're just trying to lose weight or just trying to get rid of a headache or sinuses like that, you know, something simple. When you've been really seriously ill, I think people are so glad to be well again that they're very loath to tempt Providence and have a steak or something, you know. I mean, there's no way I would touch meat again now.
Okay, well, let's take a look at our next video clip. This is a continuation from Rick Hill and his testimony, how he was cured from cancer.
I tell this story everywhere I go, 50 cities here in 2011. I've spoken and told my grandmother's story. And Rick has said, I don't know what cured me, but we know a lot about the why now since 1974 of what raw plant-based nutrition and all the green juices that you drink. Mm-hmm. And you say you still eat very healthy.
And I did the watermelon fasting. That was a big part of it. I did colonics. That was a big part of it. For those of you that don't know what a colonic is, pretend you're water skiing at a real fast rate. Then just imagine sitting down. It's kind of what a colonic is.
Yeah, only even less fun.
Less fun than that. You don't get the tan. you know.
Yeah.
But the water, yes.
It's a way to clean you out, and you know we can do anything if it helps us live another 10 years.
It's like changing the water in the radiator of your car.
Yeah.
The hose doesn't go in the top though.
We got to earn our years after the age of 40, don't we?
Yeah, that's true. Prior to 40, you can get away with about anything. You know, you hear kids say that. Well, I mean, I'm drinking 12 Cokes a day. What's your problem?
Still walking around.
And then all of a sudden, your body begins to age, and it can't do those things anymore.
Yeah. And in an increasingly toxic world, people younger and younger are getting in trouble.
Like I was 23.
Yeah, that's absolutely yeah.
So I was here for the it was almost 4-week program. And the important thing to know is what I did when I got home. I stayed on the program. And that's what people don't do. They don't stay on the program. It seems like 001. But I hate to quit harping on that, or keep harping on the, you know, if you've ever had a crummy car, you never took care of it.
Yeah.
You didn't wash it, you didn't wax it. And your body's the same way. If you don't think you're a valuable person, why would you do without all that stuff?
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
I write about this a lot. That if you know, it's about if you love yourself, you're going to take good. We take good care of the things that we value. We take good care of our body if we value it, and if we're abusing our body, we might want to take a look at do we really value it. So you're an inspiration. I'm super excited to have people hear this from you because a lot of people, you know, they hear the C word and they start thinking completely differently about their life. They start planning an exit strategy.
Cool. Okay.
Hi there, welcome back. Rick was mentioning about the colonics and the procedure. Is there an easier way of doing the colonics?
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be as though you're sitting down water skiing. That is when you go to a therapist who does a colonic for you, and they actually circulate this water round that comes out again through a tube and is disposed of, and you can either watch it with a little camera and see what is bailing out of you, or not, just as you wish. But they can diagnose what's wrong with you, really, from what is coming out. So that is a colonic. The coffee enemas, which is what I still do every day, takes 5 minutes. It's like cleaning your teeth, basically. Keeps me fit, and is the first thing I do when I get off a long-haul flight, because you're very toxic from the, you know, going through security and the queues and all this business, and sitting on the plane for all those hours. So just a little enema bag that I've shown before. I sell it on my website. Very simple. You just fill it up with the coffee or the water. For cancer, you do it with the coffee for all the good reasons that I verified with the doctors this time when I was there. They're all doing the coffee enemas. And it just means that you detox the body. You can also do saunas, and I have brought back with me a portable sauna that I found in America. When I was training years ago, they were very expensive, and they're now down to half price. They're selling millions of them, and it comes from Taiwan, I think.
How portable are they? Can you bring it into the studio and give us a demo?
No, but you can come and take a photograph of me in it if you like, and we'll put that on for next week.
And how? Explain
we'll
what
put
is a
you
portable?
in it. I think that.
No, I think not. What is a portable sauna?
A portable sauna is basically it's a chair, a foldable chair, which you cover with a towel because you're going to sweat profusely, and then it's as though you're just covered with this silver fabric that obviously reflects the heat. There are 2 little radiators inside it. I mean, it's selling millions all over the world, and it's fantastic, and it just came in a big box and arrived the day after I arrived back, so I thought that was good.
Very good. Now, Rick's mentioned on the video, up until the age of 40 years old, most of us can be disease-free on average, shall we say, and it's after 40 things have taken their toll, and the bad foods that we've been injecting into our body kind of gives us the diseases. So it's the importance of prevention from a younger age as well, isn't it?
Well, the awful thing is that people are getting sicker younger. You know, like my daughter got cancer at 18, on her 18th birthday, in fact. And you see children, you know, dying of brain tumours at 8, all this sort of frightful scene. So we're getting sicker younger because of the lifestyle. A third of the young couples are infertile now, and having to resort to IVF and all kinds of things. So we're living in a very unhealthy way, and really cancer and all disease is really just a wake-up call. Wake up, the body's saying you're doing something to me I don't like. So you start off feeling tired or just having headaches and little inflammations, irritations, and then if you don't address that, you don't change and make good choices, it develops into serious disease. So this takes the fear out of disease, really. You know, we have to understand our health is absolutely up to us.
Okay, so let's take a look at Rick's final part of his video. This is his testimony, and that cancer survivors, they do survive due to the right treatments. Let's take a look.
Sure glad you didn't. Sure glad you're still around and telling your story here at Oasis of Hope.
It's fun to come here because, you know, I'm where they're headed.
Yeah.
And when I was here, there was no one. It was a new thing. There was nobody walking around saying, yeah, I was here last year. You're doing the right thing. It was, what do you think? What do you think? Are we going up or left?
Yeah.
Horizontal.
Took a lot of faith, I'm sure.
Well,
you didn't have a whole lot of other ideas back then.
It really was pretty narrow. Chemo or here.
Okay, so you did 4 weeks at Mayo Clinic. You said your cancer did not reverse. You did 4 weeks here. Your cancer did reverse. And the Mayo Clinic to this day checks up on you once a year and claims you as their
survivor.
Success statistics.
I was at the Mayo Clinic and I survived. That is true.
Yeah, that's all they want to know.
But I refuse their chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So.
You glad about that? What would you tell a cancer patient who's watching this? What would you tell them when they hear that word applied to them? What would you tell them to?
I would say the main thing is, remember in Star Wars, was it Luke's, no, not Luke, but who was the other, Harrison Ford character?
Han Solo.
Han Solo. The robot was giving him statistics about what he could do and what were the chances of survival. And Han Solo turns around and says, never tell me the statistics. And that's exactly the truth. The Mayo Clinic made it clear to me that if I didn't take their chemotherapy, I'd be dead fast. And I didn't take their chemotherapy, and I'm 61 now. I was 23 when they told me that. Don't tell me the statistics. So if some doctor has told you you've got 3 months to live, they don't know that. They're basing that on what has happened in the past. But what's happened in the past is not what we do here for them.
And it's just an average, and you're not average, so.
Yeah, and you know, it's like, I saw a lady once, I was at a radio station, I was a general sales manager. And one of the ladies I had working for me went to the doctor, and the doctor told her she was just diagnosed with cancer. So she came into the station all depressed, and she was hurting, and she walked like a little old lady then, and she was just miserable. And then she went to the doctor like a week later. Evidently, they had misdiagnosed her. They had the wrong tests they were looking at, wrong x-rays. She came back, her pain was gone. She was perfectly, and she wanted to go party that night with everybody. So my point is, it does matter what you think. Yeah. And if some doctor tells you you're finished, your body kind of falls in line with that.
Yeah, well, because your brain produces certain chemicals in stress and anger, and completely different chemicals that it produces in pleasure, in joy and happiness. So, of course, those contribute to our physical condition. So thanks for being an inspiration to us. And
you're welcome.
I am going to go get some blood taken out of me and shake it up with some oxygen. So
are you doing that today?
Yes, that's
good for you.
Major auto hemo. So I will see you next time.
Hi there, welcome back. Like it was mentioned in the clip, how our brain produces the chemicals for when we're under pressure, we're under stress, and also the happiness as well. Explain to us how our brains work.
Well, it's really interesting, and I trained in that years and years ago. You know, we have the endocrine system in our body, which is the system of the glands. So you have the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the adrenal glands. And really our body works as one great symphony of trying to keep things in order. And so the body needs to be, to come back into homeostasis all the time. When we have good news, we feel good, our body makes good body chemistry. And when we have bad news, obviously the reverse happens. So this is really important that people learn how to control, how to detox the mind. You know, so many people are toxic, they're suspicious, they're frightened. And the only way really that people are going to get over that is to have the Lord in their life, surround themselves with other Christians, and really trust in God. As Dr. Lorraine Day says, you know, we need to go back to nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, which is coming off the bad things, rest, research, and trust in God. And when we do that, the body comes back into a wonderful homeostasis. A lot of people have been doing yoga, and of course yoga is not something that I would advocate because I'm a Christian, but that meditation, you can meditate on the Word of God, and that, I believe, is such a key. That's why I wrote that book, God's Healing Word.
Now, it is about making your mind become ready, or shall we say preparing your mind to become ready for a certain moment in life that could be stressful. But at the same time, we all go through certain stress pressures on a day-to-day basis, not just that one event when someone dies or a certain situation in their lives. What is the best way for our viewers to deal with the day-to-day pressures of life, shall we say?
Well, you see, I'm a huge believer in prayer, in meditation on the Word of God, and reading your Psalms, reading the words of Jesus, not getting into a denominational situation, which, you know, we make a joke about denominations being abominations. It's your personal communication with God. It's your communion with God. When you take communion, when you trust the Lord, when you completely concentrate your mind on what God has you here for, a mission in life, and to fulfill that and ask His help to open doors as you fulfill that for Him. That's when we get this.
Next clip, this is talking how we can spiritually help to heal cancer.
So the Oasis Hope started about 50 years ago. It grew from an idea Dr. Contreras Sr. had when he went on a mission trip to the Greek Isles. The tour guide, when he knew that Dr. Contreras Sr. was a doctor, they went to an actual an ancient hospital that they had there, and they used to treat patients in 3 different ways. The tour guide explained. They explained that first they treated him emotionally, then spiritually, of sound mind and spirit, in order to have the most benefit out of the treatment. So they had 3 different rooms. And when he was about 44 when he went on the mission trip. He used to be a pathologist, conventional, nothing alternative. And when he saw what they used to do before, it clicked, and he decided to treat his patients in those 3 different elements and treat them equally, in order for them to get the best benefit out of the treatment that he was giving them. Him being a pathologist, he knew that most of the chemotherapy, most of the radiation, most of the treatments in those days didn't work. So it became his life's mission to find treatments that actually did work for cancer
Every
patients.
morning we have a daily devotional. 8 o'clock in the morning we invite all the patients to come to the chapel, and basically we sing about 3 or 4 songs, and then we go around in a circle and we say what we're thankful for. So it's not only a devotional, it's also a support group for all of our patients. We want to start our day off right and positive, and that's the message we try to give to all of our patients. It's not about preaching, it's not about evangelizing, it's about creating an atmosphere where different faiths can look to the same God, can pray together in order to ask for basically
So there's a
miracle.
Bible passage, very famous, it's out of the book of John. it describes the disciples asking Jesus why a blind man who was born blind from birth, who had sinned in order for this man to become blind. And Jesus explains that he was not born blind because of anybody's sin, or his sin, or their father's sin. He was born blind so the glory of God could be manifested in this day.
This is one of those scriptures where the prophets or the healers put clay on the eyes or ask them to wash in the river. And we find out that the simple things are the healing things. The things that go back to the basics are the things that allow our body to come to homeostasis as our spirit and our mind does. So this is kind of what this scripture is.
When you believe that there's a higher power, you can believe that God can create a miracle, and getting rid of the cancels, that's what it's all about.
Hi there, welcome back. Just very, very interesting, the steps that they take for the treatment. They start with emotional, spiritual and physical. Let's start first with emotional.
Yes, because it's really important that people start to get the mind right, and then, as I've just said, the endocrine system starts settling down, and then we can get into the physical side of detoxing. So you're detoxing body, mind and spirit. And I've got a little CD called The Blessing, which actually goes through that. And I did it for people who couldn't read. I've got some blind viewers who, wanted to do the course, and so they asked me to put it on a CD for them. And it's on an MP3 player as well, because there are a lot of people who can't really sit and read a book. So really important to detox in body, mind and spirit, yeah.
And it's very interesting as well when they said that the procedure that they take from 8 o'clock in the morning, they go into a chapel and they do some worship songs. They're not preaching to them because there are different religions there as well, aren't there?
Yes, absolutely. There's people from all over the world, and most of them really love the words of Jesus and love the kindness that they're shown by the Christian Cancer Hospital. So most of them come to faith. I worked in there most days when I was staying. I think I was there about a fortnight. It was absolutely wonderful to see people make emotional breakthrough and get over the things that have been causing their cancer in the first place. Because, there is a spiritual cause, a physical cause, a mental cause from stress and worrying about it and thinking negatively. We have to come back to God's words and being positive. God, Jesus says, I've come to give abundant life. And when we get born again, that's the abundant life that we get. And the wearing the armor of God, Ephesians 6, which I love, and I put on that armor every day.
Now, we've just mentioned about the spiritual side, the importance of the spiritual side. What has God done to your personal life?
Oh, amazing. From leading quite a worldly life until my daughter got sick and died, and my son had also had a carcinoid tumor in his appendix, which was an absolute shock. Within 6 months I had 2 children basically threatened with cancer. One died. So you can imagine I was really exercised to find a solution for my son if he then developed it, as she had done. And I had another daughter as well, who I still have my son and daughter, thank God. And that really fired me to look for alternative ways, because I had been a British Red Cross nurse. Ironically, I had worked at St Thomas's and I had worked at the Marsden previously. And so I did know and trust that system completely. Free treatment for everybody, thank God. That is wonderful. But the thing is that it's now so expensive to do that, and there's so many people demanding it, that the NHS is under severe pressure. And as these things happen, and as financial, the financial problem is still there, the huge debt that America, Britain, Europe has, although people are talking it up at the moment and saying we're through the worst. But people will come back to natural methods when they can't afford to just have the quick fix, that you're told, or quick dose of chemo, and you'll be all right. It doesn't work like that. It's waking up to the fact that you have to change your lifestyle and not choose cancer. When you order a meal in a restaurant, you're either choosing health or you're choosing disease.
Let's take things back to basics, and we talk about the raw food, the raw diet. How can our viewers grow their own fruits and vegetables?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. We've done some programs on that, and if you have a window box or a terrace or an allotment or a big garden, you know, we can all grow some things, and it's really important to do that, because then you know that they're not being sprayed. Go to your farmer's market and buy things from growers you know who are not using chemicals, and you know, really sort of wake up to the fact that you are responsible. And as mothers and fathers, we are responsible for what we're feeding our children as well. And when they're just ordering, say, a sweet, or they're ordering a pasta, you know, we know that that's empty food. And if they're ordering a Coke, heaven forbid, or a fizzy drink, you know you're actually making them sick. And it's a matter of education, isn't it?
It is, and I think growing your own foods as well, fruits and vegetables, it's fun. It can make it fun for the children, and they see the whole process, don't they?
It's wonderful, and I think your father-in-law has a farm, doesn't he?
He sure does, yeah.
You're able to get beautiful fresh produce here in Spain, which is a real godsend. And I'd love to start a centre here if we could find someone to put up the money to start a centre, like a Christian centre, like the Oasis of Hope. There's no reason why we shouldn't do that here in Spain in a lovely climate.
So talk to me about Francisco Contreras, because I believe we've got a photo that we're going to just show on screen any moment with you and Francisco.
He is such a gentleman. He is a lovely, lovely man. There's a picture coming up.
It's going to come up any minute now.
He is such a dear, and I was introducing him and talking about Revelation TV, and then he came on the stage, gave me a big bear hug, and he just emanates confidence, you know, and for me, he emanates healing. And it's just wonderful the way that he stood up to all the, you know, the problems with governments. And of course, that's why they're in Mexico, because they literally couldn't do what they're doing in America, sadly. But I know that doors are opening. And what encourages me is that this was the first integrated health conference, Cure to Cancer. This was a huge move where we had, you know, medical doctors and people like Contreras who are doing the integrated regulatory treatments, all coming together and saying, we've had enough of this, we're not going to put up with you know, the pollution anymore, we're going to change lives. And we had 400 people at the conference. They were either doctors or they were patients, and I made wonderful friends with so many people who will be featuring on future programs.
So we've talked about the importance of eating the right foods spiritually, but also changing your lifestyle and exercising. Just briefly, talk to me about exercising.
Yeah, well, the exercising is vital because we have to oxygenate the body. And people think of exercise as a matter of, you know, exercising the muscles. In fact, the really more important thing is you are oxygenating the body so that the blood is being oxygenated, moving better through the body, and taking nutrition. So that's when our juices come into play, because we need to have those juices. We couldn't eat 50 carrots a day, but we can juice them and drink them down with much less stress on the body. So when we actually juice, we are pre-digesting the food. It's easier to digest in the body.
Okay, and if some of our viewers may not be very mobile, what simple exercises could you recommend for them?
Well, we can do all those wonderful ones in the chair that we talked about, and the breathing exercises, which I did on the plane, you know, the 11-hour flight, and I was doing my exercises in the chair, and I found lots of other people were copying me as well. So it's a matter of keeping the body going, keeping as healthy as you can.
Okay. What we've discussed today.
Well, just to say what a huge honor and privilege it was to introduce Francisco Contreras. You know, pancreatic cancer is one of the most difficult ones to cure. So, in fact, it was a wonderful testimony that I was able to give, and now I'm leading Get Well, Stay Well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today, Felicity. Thank you also to our viewers. Just to remind you, we have a catch-up service on Revelation TV. It's on our website. It's on revelationtv.com. So please do go there and see any of the videos that we showed today. Thank you so much, viewers, for joining us. Look forward to seeing you same time next time. Bye.